Welcome to the NHS Grampian shoulder exercise group. This class is designed for anyone with shoulder pain, and this can come about because of various reasons, and most of these are discussed on the educational videos that support this class. Before we start, it's really important that you think about how you're feeling today, because it's important that each of you works at your own level. The class that we'll run through today may make you a little bit out of breath. That's great. It may also increase your pain just a little bit, and it's really important that you know if that happens that you either reduce the repetition of the exercises you're doing, or you return to an easier version of the exercise. We would recommend, based on current evidence, that you do this class or these exercises 3 times a week for at least 3 months, that's 12 weeks, in order to feel a consistent and lasting benefit. The class itself is broken down into a warm-up section. Then there are eight stations in a circuit. Each of these stations has a progressive exercise, 3 exercises that you work through, and then this is followed by a short cool down as well. Before we start, what you'll need for the class is you'll need an exercise band, so either a yellow, red, green or blue, whichever's been provided by your physiotherapist. And we're using some equipment in the class today, but this can be mimicked either by a towel or by a pillow, so we'll tell you as we go through ways that you can modify the exercises. Okay, so let's start with a small warm-up to start with. So we're just going to start marching on the spot. And this is just supposed to be gradual. Get you warmed up nicely, get the joints moving nicely. Get a nice higher knees if you can manage. Okay, now we'll start with just a couple of movements of the shoulders just to warm them up really gently. So just start with some nice rolls of those shoulders, either backwards or forwards. We're going to do both. Okay, and just come back to normal. And then whichever way you just went, we're just going to do the opposite. So I'm just going to roll forwards. Sometimes a little bit difficult to coordinate if you may, but that's fine. And back to normal. Okay, and now we're just going to do a few stretches of the upper part of your back and your neck. So we'll come and stand nice and gently while we do this. We'll start with your back, so if you just cross your hands over your chest and just do a nice turn to the right hand side and hold that for a good few seconds just for a nice stretch of that back. Try to keep your knees and hips pointing forwards rather than twisting round. Okay. Back to the centre and to the left side. Again, keeping those knees and hips pointing forwards if you can. And again, just come as far as is comfortable for you, not forcing it. This is really just to warm you up gently. Okay, back to the middle. And we'll do the same thing once more. So if you can only come this far, that's absolutely fine. Just take it as far as is comfortable. Think about getting those shoulder blades away from the ears, so a nice long neck as you're doing it as well. Back to the middle, and once more to the left side. And back to the middle. Relaxing those arms by the sides, nice long neck, and we'll do a few movements of the neck now just to warm it up. So we'll start with a turn to the right side. Again, just as far as is comfortable. If you can't look over your shoulder, that's absolutely fine. But we're holding that for a good few seconds just to get used to that position. And gently coming back to the middle and away to the left. Nice, slow, gentle movement, so nothing that's going to make you feel dizzy or anything like that. And feel a nice stretch down the opposite side of that neck. Back to the middle, and again we'll do once more to each side. So away to the right. You should be feeling it tight down the opposite side of your neck. and not pushing to the point where anything's sore, just a nice stretch. Last one to the left. And back to the middle. And now we're going to move side to side. So sometimes this movement isn't quite as big, so you're going to drop your ear down to your shoulder. Again, feeling the stretch on the opposite side. And if you can only come a small way, that's absolutely fine, don't worry about it. It may well be with time you manage to stretch further, or it may well be your neck just doesn't want to move that far at the moment, that's okay. You may feel the stretch feels a little bit different the longer you hold it. Again, that's nothing to be concerned about at all. Okay, slowly back up to the top, and now we'll go to the left side. You might notice a difference between one side and the other. Again, that's nothing to be concerned about. All the more reason to stretch, to try and make them the same on both sides if we can manage. Slowly back up to the middle, and we'll do one more on each side. So just a gentle stretch. Come back up, and one last one. With this one, just making sure that you're not doing anything too quickly, because the side to side movements can sometimes make you feel a little bit dizzy, and that's not what we want. Good, and coming back up to the middle. Maybe just a couple of rolls of the shoulders just to ease that neck out a little bit. And the last thing we'll do is really a movement for the whole of the arms and the shoulders. So you're going to imagine you're holding a tray in front of you, and you're going to gently move your arms out to the side. Okay, move those hands out to the side. Coming back into the middle. Okay. We're going to do that again. If you're able to do so, I want you to lift your arms to shoulder height and bring them back down. We'll do that a couple more times. This time, if you can progress, we're going to engage your core a little bit and just raise up onto your tiptoes. So you might find that's a little bit of a challenge for your balance. That's the whole point. And come back down. Okay, we're going to do that twice more. Lifting up to the side. This time, I want you to turn your palms to face the floor and to face the ceiling. If this is too much, and all you can do is take those hands out to the side, that's absolutely fine. Work within your own limits. Certainly if you're just starting the class and this is the first time that you've done this warm-up, then just work within your own limits and maybe progress throughout the course of the next 3 months. To the floor, to the ceiling, come all the way back down. Good. Shake everything out, and that's you ready to start the class. Okay, so we'll start the first exercise, the first part of the circuit, and for this, here we're going to use a trampoline or a trampette. If you don't have something like this at home, you can maybe just stand on some pillows, or even just doing this standing on the floor. We'll show you the exercise, that's another way to do it. The idea of the trampette is it's just going to challenge your balance ever so slightly. So to start with, we're going to stand on the floor, on a cushion if it's safe to do so, or on your trampette, and we're going to do 3 minutes. And you're just going to be marching on the spot. Okay? If even this much movement for your arms to start with is too much, you can just start with your arms by your sides. You'll notice I'm not actually marching at the minute, I'm just lifting the heels one by one. You'll start to hear me get a little bit out of breath. If this is manageable, you can go to a full march. Okay? And this is the basic level of this exercise. So as we go through the 3 minutes, I'll show you the 2 progressions we have of this, and if you're comfortable to do so, you can start on the next level up. So trying to make sure that you've got nice movement of the arms, and it should gradually make you slightly out of breath. If not, then you can lift your knees higher and move the arms slightly more. Okay, so for the next minute, I'm going to show you the next level up. If you're not ready to progress, there's no need to do so. But the next level is simply adding in a weight. Okay? Here I've got 2 really light ½ kilo weights. If you don't have weights at home, you can use a tin of beans, or a tin of soup, they're normally about half a kilo. If you don't have that, then even just a water bottle or a bottle of juice, something that's about half a kilo in each hand should be absolutely fine. Again, this should get to the point, certainly after a minute or two, where you start to feel slightly out of breath. There shouldn't be any pain, but fatigue is absolutely fine, and it's what we're working towards. So again, I will do a minute at this level, and then we'll move on to the next level up. But for you, we just want you to do 3 minutes at one level, either the basic, intermediate, or advanced. So for this last minute, we're going to do the same thing, but you're going to use straight arms rather than bent arms. Okay, it may well be for coordination, you need to slow down the exercise a little bit. Okay, if you can take the arms further, even better. If this still feels easy, you can always just increase the weight that you're holding in your hands. So rather than half a kilo, you can move up to a kilo, which is like a litre bottle of water in each hand. Okay, if this feels fine, the other thing you can do is taking the arms out to the side. Again, a bit of a challenge for coordination, but that's not such a bad thing. And just to reiterate, the idea of the 3 minutes is you just do it at one of the levels, whatever's most appropriate. Okay, so we've moved the trumpet to the side, and we'll move on to the next station, which is using the band that you should have been given by your physiotherapist. So you just want to attach it probably to the back of a door handle. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the band. I'm going to demonstrate it with the yellow here. You're going to stand with your feet about hip distance apart, and we're just going to do some pull downs with the band. Okay, again, it's another 3-minute circuit. And throughout this 3 minutes, I'll do a minute at each level, and it's for you to decide which level is most appropriate for you, that's working you hard enough, but obviously not pushing you into any pain. Key things to remember with this is you're not pulling all of the way back and leaning forwards, and you also need to keep a nice bit of length between your ears and your shoulder blades. It's really common to be up in this position here, and this is what we want to work away from. So really think about setting those shoulder blades down on your back, keeping some nice length between your ears and your shoulder blades. Nice and slow movement because it's about control rather than speed. I've started with a light band, you might have a different colour band. So what we'll do is we'll move on to the next level of challenge. And rather than going up in terms of resistance of the band, we're actually going to challenge your balance a little bit. So there's 2 ways to come onto this next level. You can either just lift your heels off the floor, which immediately will engage your core. You can see I'm wobbling a little bit, demonstrating badly. Again, you don't want to be pulling and holding on with this band. It's really pulling back to start to work the middle part of your back rather than those shoulders. Again, pulling that band to about the level of the seam in your trousers. If coming onto your toes is too much of a challenge, you can always stand with one foot in front of the other, standing nice and tall to engage your core, and then pulling down the way. And by engaging the core, the idea is that we're going to switch off some of these muscles above the shoulders, the ones just at the back of your neck. So again, really thinking about keeping those shoulder blades back and down. Working nicely at your own pace. Okay, so we'll progress on to the most difficult level now. And that is to challenge your balance even further. We've got a wobble cushion here. If you don't have a wobble cushion at home, you can just stand on a couple of pillows. And again, you complete the same exercise, so this will challenge your balance a little bit. Pulling down. Again, keeping those shoulder blades away from your ears. And really trying to engage that core a little bit. You can see I should probably be doing a little bit more work on this. If this still feels okay, then you might be able to just increase the resistance of your band, either from the yellow to the red to green, or green to blue. Okay, so this is the third circuit of the 8 that we'll go through just now. And this one we're going to do a pull with the band. So you need to get, again, the loose band from your physiotherapist. And what we're going to do is we're going to do basically this movement with your arm coming across the body. It may well be that you just need to start with the movement and not even the band. Start with your band at the opposite hip of your painful shoulder with a bit of looseness in the band. And to start off with, you're simply going to pull the band across and back. Across and back. Sometimes we say this is like pulling a sword out of its sheath here. So if you were to do that, you would also look where the sword is going. So what I want you to do is follow this hand with your head. That'll get some nice movement of the top part of your back as well. Like I say, this can be a bit of a tricky movement, so you may even want to start this movement on its own without the band. Nice slow movement. Coming to about shoulder height when you're pointing that sword. The other reason that we want you to follow that sword and to point that sword is you might notice that my hand is moving, so it gets a little bit of rotation of the arm as well, okay? So I'm now going to demonstrate the next level of the exercise, but only progress if you're comfortable to do so. So what we'll do now is exactly the same movement, but now you can pop it under your foot instead, so you're more free to move, and we're going to do a step and back. Step and back. Really watching that hand so that you get full movement of the whole body. It's a little bit like putting something on a shelf on the other side of a room. Okay? Again, if this is too much, you can go back to the previous level, and sometimes just doing the movement itself without the band might be enough. And if this feels okay, you can go on to the last level of the exercise, which is really where you exaggerate that whole movement and you have a lunge. If this still feels easy, you will probably manage the next level of resistance. So if you're on a red band, you'd be on the green, yellow would be red, and if you've started with a green band, then you'd manage with a blue. It may well be you also want to do this exercise on the other side as well, just to compare your affected and non-affected shoulder. Okay, so about 20 seconds to go. It starts to get a little bit tiring, and you should be feeling it around your shoulder. Again, no pain with this one. Fatigue is fine. If it's sore, then just ease off, go to the previous level of the exercise. Okay, and last one. Great. Okay, so we'll start the fourth circuit of the programme now, and what you'll need for this exercise is a tied band that you should have been given by your physio. I'm going to start with the lightest, so you're going to pop it around the wrists, again thinking about some nice length between your ears and your shoulders, so keeping those shoulder blades back and down. And what you want to do is put some resistance on the band, so really coming from the shoulders rather than like this, and we're going to gently lift. Start off just lifting up and down. And again, as with the other exercises, I'll start with this first level. You might find with your sore or affected arm that you see a little bit of a tremble. That's totally normal. It's just because the muscles there are a little bit weaker at the moment. That's what we want to aim to get stronger. So nice and slow and controlled, coming up to about shoulder height. If it feels okay, you can also take it slightly higher, but I would focus on just where you can move in a pain-free range at the moment. And I'll just turn sideways, so you want to keep a nice length, as I say, between the ears and the shoulder blades, so we're not in this position. Really thinking about keeping those shoulder blades back and down. The next level is we're going to add in a little bit of movement. So what we're going to do is step forwards as we come up and back as you come back down. Forwards and up. What we're trying to do is make it as functional as possible. So think about maybe lifting something to put it on a shelf in front of you. And you might start to feel this burn a little bit around the shoulder blades rather than on the top of the shoulder itself. So trying to keep those hands nice and level. After about 2 minutes, you should definitely be feeling a little bit tired and a little bit achy. If you're not, you might manage the next level of band up. Okay, and so what we'll do a couple more of these, and then I'll show you the final most advanced level of this circuit. So nice and slow with the movements, okay? If when you're doing these you do get quite tired, you can always do sets of 10 with a little rest in between, and then start again for your 3 minutes. Okay, so the last level of this exercise, we're going to add in a little bit more movement. So I'm just going to perch on the edge of a chair, and you're going to do exactly the same movements with the arms, but almost coming up and down from the chair. I'm changing the feet just because your balance might be a little bit different one side to the other. Again, coming up to about shoulder height. And if you start to get out of breath, brilliant. That's probably the level we need you to be working at. So we've got about 30 seconds to go. And obviously, whichever level you're most comfortable at, you do the whole 3 minutes at that level. So either standing still with a step forward or coming up and down. If this still feels easy, increase the resistance on the band and take the movement a little bit further. This is the fifth circuit of the 8 stations, and what we're going to do in this one is we're going to work on activating your trunk muscles or your core a little bit to help give a bit of stability for the shoulder. So essentially, to do that, we're just going to challenge your balance. So I want you to stand with one foot in front of the other as if you're on a tightrope. You're going to squeeze your bottom, stand up nice and tall. You might feel, and you can see my ankles are moving, my legs are shaking just a little bit to try and keep you nice and steady. If this is too much, you can take your feet slightly apart, or you can even try it just coming up and lifting those heels off the floor will also help just engage your trunk a little bit. And then we're going to start with a really gentle movement of the hands. So you're just going to think about touching the hands in front and behind. And certainly for some of you, this might be a little bit challenging, because certainly this movement behind your back is often one of the movements that's the most difficult and can be limited for quite a period of time if you've had any issues with the shoulder. So this is the most basic level of this circuit. So for some of you this might be enough. And what I would encourage is you would do 1.5 minutes like this. And then you would also switch the feet around, and you may well find that one side is more difficult than the other. Okay, one side is a bit more unsteady than the other because we tend to be a little bit asymmetrical. So you can see I'm wobbling around a little bit, so we still want to engage. You squeeze that bottom, stand up tall. Again, some nice length between the ears and the shoulder blades, so thinking about keeping those shoulder blades down. So we're not in this position here, and we're not trying to force that arm around at waist height. So we'll move on, and I'll show you the next level of this exercise now. It's exactly the same really, but we're just going to add in a bit of a weight. I've got 2 options here. One is a ball, or one is a kind of dumbbell. We're starting off with 0.5 kilo, so a tin of something from your cupboard is absolutely fine. Making sure you're nice and steady, and then you're just going to pass the weight around where you were touching your hands beforehand. Keeping the arms nice and long. You can also try turning that weight in the other direction. Again, if this is challenging for you, you might want to do 10, have a couple of seconds rest, and then do another 10. You can see I'm getting a little bit unsteady, so we're just going to reset, switching on that tummy, squeezing that bottom, and passing the weight around your waist. Okay. If this is manageable for you, then the highest progression for this exercise is you're then going to start to increase how much you can move that weight. And to start off with, we're going to come up to shoulder height. Okay, passing the ball one direction and then in the other, Still making sure those shoulder blades are staying down, they're not bunching up into this position. If that feels manageable, and this may well be over the course of a couple of weeks or even a couple of months, you might get to the point where you can take it higher in front. We don't want to worry about behind, because as soon as you take it higher behind, you'll start to lean forward. So just high when you're coming forwards. If you can do all of these with a light weight, then you would progress the weight from half a kilo to a kilo, etc. Okay, so this is the 6th of the 8 circuits, and for this one we're going to continue some of that work where we're trying to get your trunk nice and activated again to support and to give you a bit of stability around those shoulder blades. So I'm going to bring in what we call a gym ball. You may have one of these. If you do, that's great. If not, you can mock up this exercise by maybe putting a couple of pillows on the chair. So essentially what you want to do from the ball is you want to make life a little bit unsteady when you're sitting, to start to challenge your balance just a little bit. So I would find a nice stable chair and maybe put 1 or 2 cushions on it, making sure it's safe, you're not going to slip off the chair, but when you're sitting on those cushions it should just feel a little bit unsteady. You could also maybe do this on the side of your bed as well if that's nice and soft, as long as it's encouraging you to sit up nice and straight. And for this exercise, we're just going to start a little bit like on the trampoline. We're going to start, you're just going to do a little bounce and think about as if moving your legs as if you're walking. So all I'm doing is lifting the heels and getting the arms moving as well. Thinking about sitting up nice and tall, so if you are on a pillow on the chair, making sure you're not slumping too much and you've not got your feet really, really wide, so keeping nice and upright. Again, just being mindful of the position of your shoulder blades, so nothing like this, really thinking about trying to lengthen between the ears and the shoulders so those shoulder blades are sitting nicely on your back. So we've started with short arms. You can also swing the arms as well, and you can do slightly bigger marches. You can see even that makes things a little bit more difficult and can challenge your coordination a little bit. If that feels fine, then the progression of this exercise, really simple, is just to add in a weight. So again, I've got small half kilos here. This could be a tin of something from your cupboard, or little bottles of water or bottles of juice or something. And again, if it feels fine with your bent elbows, then you can think about doing more of a marching. Obviously, the more you lift your feet, the more it's going to challenge your balance a little bit. Okay, you might need to slow down a little bit because sometimes we want control rather than speed. And you might be able to take those arms just a little bit further, remembering to stay sitting nice and upright. Okay, and then for the last minute, what you could do is either increase the weight that you're using, but you definitely want to start moving those arms. You might even be able to do a punch up towards the ceiling or a punch out in front of you. So really trying to engage that core, sitting nice and upright and trying to control that movement. If this movement is too far for you, then just stay in a region where it's not causing too much pain, and making sure by increasing the challenge, you're not just encouraging your shoulders to come up towards the ears, okay? You might even be able to manage out to the side. And again, if all of these feel fine, then you would want to increase the weight and also increase the distance that you're moving that weight. Okay, so this is the 7th, the penultimate circuit of all 8, and for this we're going to do some push-ups against the wall and progress that. So find a nice space where you've got enough room to be able to move your arms, okay? And what we're going to do is you're going to pop your arms on the wall at about shoulder height. If even this position is too much for you, you can bring them down ever so slightly. You want your hands at about shoulder width apart, so not too wide. And again, you want to think about bringing these shoulder blades back and down. For this, your heels are going to stay on the floor the whole time, so come and step out away from the wall a little bit, and you're just going to start lowering yourself towards the wall and pushing straight. So all of the movement should come from the elbows. It's not about lowering in through your tummy. You're thinking about keeping nice and straight here, lowering in towards the wall. You might feel it a little bit tight on your calves as well, but really trying to keep those heels on the floor if you can. And again, this might be one where you're doing sets of 10 and then taking a couple of seconds break and coming back to it. The circuit in a whole, as normal, is 3 minutes. So what we'll do now is we'll come on to the next level of the exercise. So if this is fine for you, you just keep going with this for 3 minutes. And now we start the push-ups against a gym ball. As I say, the alternative is if you just do this at something of a lower height. So the edge of a worktop is normally the best to use, just so you start putting a little bit more weight through those shoulders. Again, making sure that you're not just sagging in the tummy, so you keep that tummy switched on. Squeeze that bottom as well, so the movement should just be coming from the elbows. As I fatigue, you might see that I start to cheat just a little bit. And again, just making sure those shoulder blades don't start creeping up towards your ears. If you need to take breaks, please do so small, 5-10 second breaks in between your sets of 10, okay? The most advanced for this is we're going to progress, put some more weight through those shoulders, and we're going to do push-ups from your knees on the floor, okay? So, taking your knees slightly further back than your hips, you want to squeeze that bottom and tuck it under, okay? And then you want to lower and push up. If this is too much, then just revert to the previous level. Again, if you're doing this for the 3 minutes, you may want to just do sets of 10. Okay, so this is the last circuit of all 8, and for this one we're just going to do a little bit of work on shoulder control. So it's all about small movements this time, not big movements of the arm. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with something that you can slide on the wall. I've got a weighted ball here. This would also work with a towel. You want to basically put it in between your hands of your affected side, and you want to put that on the wall, okay? You're going to step 1 foot, the opposite foot in front on the floor. So again, just to engage that trunk just a little bit, you want to put a slight bit of weight through the hand, remembering to try and engage this shoulder blade, and all you're going to do is really small movements on the wall. So this is about control of your shoulder blade and shoulder. So it's not about big movements. All of the movements should really be coming from around the shoulder blade. So small crosses on that wall, trying to keep the elbow straight, engaging that core. If crosses are fine, you can do very small circles as well. Really, really small movements. Like I say, if you don't have a ball, then a towel would work. Okay? So the progression of this is then to put more weight through the shoulder. So we're going to come down onto the floor. And what we're going to do is you're going to come onto your hands and your knees, so knees underneath the hips, hands underneath the shoulders, and again it's about small movements, so you're going to think about transferring your weight from one hand to the other to see how it feels through your affected shoulder. And again, you're thinking about doing small crosses really with your shoulder blades, so you can come forwards, backwards, back and to the sides. So it should be movement from the shoulders rather than coming forwards and trying to engage that core as much as you can while you're doing that. Okay, so I'm going to bring my knees forward just a little bit. Okay, really making sure the shoulders are above your wrists. Sometimes a bit of wrist pain might mean that you can't do this, so just continue with the exercise at the wall. If this feels okay, then the final progression is you're going to actually keep yourself steadier, okay, engage that trunk, and you're going to take all of your body weight through one hand, okay, and we're going to lift up, keeping the body nice and steady, and take all of your weight through each shoulder at a time. So you should feel your shoulder blade working. It's not about big movements of the arm, it's really about control. So even if you're just hovering the hands off the floor, that's great. What we don't want to see is lots of movement and lots of speed. It's really about keeping the rest of your body really nice and strong and steady as you lift that hand. If this feels okay and you can progress, the progression would be to start adding in a leg as well. But the first thing to focus on would be to be managing this exercise. Okay, so after you've finished all of the 8 circuits, really recommend that you do a little bit of a cool down, so you should be a little bit out of breath. You might have a few aches, so shoulders feeling heavy, arms feeling heavy. You should be feeling the difference after that, after the class. If you're not, you might be able to progress some of the exercises a little bit. So just a little cool down to help bring your heart rate down and bring your breathing back under control. So we would do a little bit of marching on the spot. And gradually slowing down the pace. And then we would just do some stretches of your neck and stretches of your shoulder. So if you just come to stand still, we'll stretch the neck first. So we'll think about just dropping your chin to your chest. Get a nice stretch up the back of your neck. Just go as far as is comfortable, obviously. And we want to hold that for a good few seconds. Slowly back up. And we'll do that twice. And then we'll come side to side, so again, nice and slowly, just as far as is comfortable for that neck. Back to the middle, over to the other side. So it shouldn't be painful, but it should be far enough that you're feeling a nice stretch on the opposite side of the neck. And it may well be with time you're able to move a little bit further. Okay, 2 more for the neck, and it's just side to side, an awkward movement sometimes. But again, just feeling a nice stretch on the opposite side. Nice and slowly, so no issues with dizziness or anything like that when you're moving your head. And again, think about bringing those shoulder blades down, nice length between the ears and the shoulders, not up here. You may notice a difference between one side and the other. Again, not unusual by any means, so nothing to be concerned about. We just hope with some gentle exercises we might be able to normalise that just a little bit. And 1 more each side. Again, just coming as far as is comfortable. And by now your breathing and your heart rate should be coming nicely under control. Okay, and the last 2 are specifically for the shoulder, so for the front and the back of the shoulder. So I want you to interlace your fingers, and I want you to stretch all the way forwards. Feeling a really nice stretch over the back of your shoulders. And again, we'll just do that a couple of times. Okay, and the last one, I want you to pop your hands just on your hips, bringing those elbows together, squeezing those shoulder blades together. You should feel a nice stretch across your chest. Not straining too much, just feeling a nice stretch. these off, and one last one. So just bringing those shoulder blades together if you can. Nice stretch across the front of your chest. Okay, some small shoulder rolls, and that's you good to go until the next class.